Jared, thanks so much for joining Good Mentor Academy. It's awesome to have you on. Everybody knows your name as like the founder of like RevGenius. Let's go back a little bit and then like tell us about RevGenius for people who maybe listen to this who don't know which one
Yeah.
you read. Well,
Rev.
what? How did you build it? And then let's go into
Oh
what you're doing.
man. So the quick of it is RevGenius is a community. We passed 60,000 members. My team's telling me we're at 70,000. I kind of want to poke holes in that, but like in that range, right? Like I'm my own biggest critic. But started, geez, 5.5 years now ago, during COVID. I had no job and I wanted to find a job. So like, the impetus of RevGenius is like super aligned with relationship building in the sense that I built with the original co-founder a LinkedIn chat with like four of us in it. Everybody's goal was to like build connection. My goal was to get a job. But like build connection to get an outcome, right? And during COVID, we needed that connection more than we ever had. And what like for fun, like this is when I like started posting on LinkedIn, like the content part of it. And we would all be like helping each other with posts and engaging with each other's posts. It wasn't a pod, it was a friendship. And then one day I'm like, everyone here, invite two more people like that your homie is with, like in this LinkedIn world, and that are just like you. Like the only rule is they have to be a vibe and they have to be in this now to be called go to market space, like revenue space, right? That group grew to 26 people, and like in the original foursome, I was asking everybody if they had job openings, and then as it grew, I was asking a little less, like fostering this, and there was some incredible signal that this was going to be bigger than just even a 25 person LinkedIn DM, which it became to. Every day, the LinkedIn chat would break because people were messaging so much, like rapid fire, and I I'm like, I think there's a community here. I don't know if it's a business yet, but I think there's something here, and I took a look at the space and I'm like, do we even need another community? And we had Revenue Collective at the time, which is now Pavilion. There was Modern Sales Pros. There was Sales Hacker at the time for anybody that remembers that really great website. And there was like Bravado. And I'm like, huh, interesting. There's other communities. Is there a need for another one? And there's probably a ton of small ones that I just didn't even recognize. And what I realized was there wasn't at the time a community for everyone that felt like community. Like if it was for everyone, it was like a newsletter, like Sales Hackers, like content site, right?
Mm.
And Sales Hacker did a great job of throwing events. So set up the Slack group. I had to because LinkedIn DMs were breaking every single day, like in your app, like shutting on its own multiple times, and people were getting mad. Thank you, LinkedIn. We left LinkedIn to go to Slack. Pick Slack because everyone told me to. Go where users are, and it was a good decision. There's nuance to that as time goes, but like it was a good decision at first, and then just kept growing this thing because I'm like, damn, if it's this popular with these people, and the funny story is, I never got a job from my idea. I, I built a business with it, and along the way, like one of the first, I don't know, 50, 100 members, who's still a good friend today. He's a mentor of mine. He actually had a job opening. I'm like, just like I was like a head of sales, early stage person, very small teams, solo seller to start type of vibe. And I'm like, just you have an enterprise AE role. That sounds great. I have no job, and he liked me, and we had built a really great relationship, and I liked him, and I told him I couldn't come for the interview because um, of the relationship we built, because I was just so focused on this thing that was generating no revenue, and I had recruiters telling me to not apply for jobs because we were growing like 1 to 3,000 members a month, which even today that would be like quite a bit. That'd probably still be the biggest if I started something new that was growing that fast. And I told him like I got to focus on this other thing, and
So like
fortunately that
there,
that relationship's only gotten better over time. You know, integrity is everything. But I think that's probably a good segue to this conversation.
I had when I signed up for RevGenius, that was probably like 3 years ago. I got in the chat and I felt it like that was like, hey, this is actually people like showing up as people, and like the community like aspect of it, which obviously everyone calls themselves a community, but then what's a community? So I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I guess like what do you think it is that made like the Rev Genius like the culture or the DNA or the
Yeah,
thing that people were like, we're gonna treat this thing a bit differently,
yeah.
and behave differently, and make it stick. Like, what's the you hit a chord clearly, but what is it?
So I was very intentional with the first 500 people we brought on because
Mm,
I realized they were going to be the pace setters.
mm,
So, for better or worse, the first 500 people loosely knew of everybody else. If they knew them well or not was something else, because
mm,
we had built a culture that we would only let people in that were referred.
mm,
And that was something cool. And like people understood that. Also, I had very much like setting the pace. I set the pace with my co-founder is like, we want to support people first. We're not here to sell you anything. And I think that's a core thing as well. You know, we started as a free community. We're still a no cost community today because I had not because I think that's a better business model per se. I actually think paid communities is a very logical and good business model. Um, but more because I wanted to change the space, like bring it from the old guard to the new guard, so to speak. You know, like the student ties, everybody like lacks culture, and you know, I don't want to say that in a bad way. Like there was like a business culture more
yeah,
so 5 6 years ago, and I believed that people were different outside business, like, and I wanted them to be their full selves. So I wanted to create like a really cool environment, and I believed uh, having a free access point was a way to allow both an SDR and a CRO in the same room, which I believe provided value for both. Because if you remember 5 6 years ago, that was the beginning of outbound becoming really hard, and SDRs actually knew more than CROs at that, right? Like, so they were learning from each other, and obviously, somebody coming up can learn from somebody with experience. That goes without saying. So creating that environment was everything. And there was also some like, you know, weekly events that were happening, like Thursday night sales at the time, that were like tying the community together as well.
mm,
And collectively, there was this movement of inclusivity of all, because like some of the other communities that were out at the time were either paid or leaders only, you know, and stuff. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. In fact, there's a lot of benefits to that, but I saw that as a blocker for changing the space,
mm,
right? And so all of this combined created this like energy, and I remember before we automated the welcome messages and stuff,
mm,
I was sending a lot of them myself, and I was really really active, and for many reasons I'm not as active, you know, just bandwidth type of stuff in Slack. And I was just like, and I wasn't even starting conversation so much. Like they were starting on their own, if you remember. And like I was just like coming in and connecting people. I was trying to
right.
be a community manager and also a net new acquirer. So like I think that was big. And I think because I put such a focus on acquisition, which might not have been the best gate to go first, but you know, you're a growth guy. Like acquisition tends
100%.
to be the starting point before you go into the other stuff. Uh, like there was always an influx of more people, like really good people coming in, and people were excited to be around that. So you had somebody that has like a help first, connecting others culture that was thoughtful with the first 500 members. Like everyone had to, anyone could come in, but there was like a light approval process, like a referral process. And, it was kind of like the perfect storm at the time. And especially with like the beginnings of LinkedIn, where people were like leaning in there, and there was just like a really incredible energy in the space as a whole. So we took that and created this different vibe with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I could feel it, and I'm sure we can, like, when they still join right now, like, you're super intentional, focused on like helping each other. The referral, of course, there's some mechanics there that are interesting, like to like just referral only for the first lucky few, and then kind of lighten that up, but like keep that like the core. And yeah, I think also the timing was right, right? COVID and people like kind of like taking their ties off. I'm working from home. Like, fuck, I want to connect. I want to get like on a, I want to get real.
I'm
Like, because,
yeah, and you know what? I've always been a big fan of this energy. And at 60, 70,000 people, like
I hope
it's harder to do this. Like, so I'll tell you like some of the mechanics like we're working through now, like to make it even better, and like what we're thinking through. But yeah, so now, okay, so anyway, like I'm a big fan of inclusivity with like a self-selecting type of exclusivity vibe. Like everyone's been to that type of like bar that's just like the coolest. No
Mhm.
door policy, the coolest people in the world there. But when somebody who doesn't feel like belong or whatever, they they feel like it might not be for them. So like when you get to that point where it is for you, hey, this is inclusive and all of that. So like, always have loved that type of energy. And today we're going back to a more we're going back to like an approval process to get in. And it's not a strict one. It's more like if you're a director, head of, VP or C level, you're in. If you're a founder, I want to take a look deeper to see like if you're a founder of like a tech company, or maybe just somebody without a job that listed themselves as a founder. And by the way, I want to help people without jobs. Don't take that any which way. And then be way more strict with the ICs, because what we've been seeing, and this is a function of where the market is today, not a function of anything else, is that outbound has gotten so hard that people aren't respecting communities at all. Some people, I should say. And we want to have our guard up, a bit more for that. And then we want to go through and make it a safer place. Like whether it's people selling in the DMs. I don't think there's a community out there that doesn't have people selling in the DMs, and that's
Yeah,
unfortunate. That's really unfortunate, because that's the antithesis of community. That's trying to take instead of trying to give. So we want to figure out, even at this scale, and that might mean slowing down new members. Probably will, 100% will. It might mean looking at our current members and seeing certain profiles, and like figuring out where risks are and stuff like that, based on engagement and all of that. And we have a really great moderating team, but the principle of community, the principle of relationships, like the core principle, to make either work, you have to be adding value versus taking first and foremost. And if at the end of the day all you did was add and you got nothing, That's beautiful. That's beautiful because you get something in the act of giving. It's like karma, right? So I think what works in community works in relationships, and works in networking. What someone once asked me, how do you network? Like, they're all like brothers and sisters with each other, right? Like, relationship building, networking, like, it might be semantics. And I said the best way to network is to help somebody that you want to network with something outside of a problem that you can make money from. And when you do that, like I hopped on a call yesterday, and somebody said they have these 3 problems. I could help with one. Actually, they said they had these 2 problems. I could kind of help with one and I couldn't help with the other. So I gave suggestions for how they could do that and intros to be made and stuff. And then I shared, something that I was working on, et cetera, because I was the point of the call. But like, lead with giving, lead with ideas, lead with conversation that could help the person you're talking to. Either, if you're a pro in it and that's how you make money, help them without expecting them to work with you, of course. And then also go an extra mile to help them with things that, connecting them with other people that might be able to help them better than you, or ideas that you've seen, or things like that outside of that.
Love it. That's awesome. And I can see it's tough to do it like 70,000 people, but if that's the DNA and people get it, like, and people see like examples of it happening in front of them, they'll sort of like replicate that.
Yeah, at 70,000 people, Slack becomes harder, and having and I should say having a third party platform becomes harder in general, because this is stuff that you need to build in.
You're breaking Slack, basically. Is that one of the largest like Slack that ever existed, or what? Like,
I'm sure there's larger. It might be the largest in the go-to-market space.
Yeah. Awesome. So obviously, like, we're in this podcast that we're talking about like warm intros. We're talking a lot about like relationship building, like ahead of asking anything, and like you say, like, help and give before you ever like ask. How do you think then about like network-led growth? In today's age, like, because we see outbound is getting harder, cold outbound is and you can't.
It's expensive. It's expensive. Whatever you want to call it. You want to call it dead. You want to call it hard. It's expensive. It's more expensive today.
Yeah, it is. Stacking all the signals. There's not enough signals under the sun. But I mean, I also talk to people who are like extremely good at like finding the right signal, very specific.
Sure.
That still works, obviously. Like, but what always worked and what works better, we think, at least at this form, is like warm introduction. Like, there's so much untapped value. How do you see that, like, in the context, I guess, of have you seen that in the concept of RevGenius?
Yeah.
And if you were like a seller today, like, I'm gonna build and lean on my network, like, to ask eventually for intros, how do you approach that?
So there's a couple levels to this. Like, first, you actually need to be friendly with who you're giving a warm intro to, and who you're asking from. So many people will ask for intros for people that you're connected with on LinkedIn, but you may have never had a conversation with. That's difficult. So now the second part is like, okay, so you've distilled who you actually know and stuff, and friend group, and then an intro there. The asking for an intro can't be transactional, right? Like, it can if you're like really good friends with them, of course, and it's going to be potent. But I think even if you're really good friends, we've all hopped on a call with somebody that we haven't spoken to in 6 months because you want to ask a favor. We've all gotten those calls. and we laugh, and some of them we're cool with, and others were like, what the fuck, right? Like he only calls me or she only calls me when they need something.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you have a good relationship with them, they'll still do it, right? And so one, it's important to keep relationships going with all folks first and foremost, not just come to them, and that's not easy to do, but like to make an attempt. And then second, even if it's out of the blue, give more than you get, because you're reaching out to somebody because you probably want a meeting with someone that they know well, if we're in a sales context that you want to do business with. Making sure to actually catch up with them, actually, have a warm conversation, actually ask what's top of mind for them, and actually try to help them with anything they have before doing that is incredible. So with case in point, and things just come to you when you do this and when you give more than you get. I'm helping a really awesome, call her a LinkedIn influencer, whatever, like with something that she's not as good at. And that's like crafting a narrative and like a point of view around a new direction she wants to go. And I was just like, damn, like, you're awesome. You're good at things I'm not good at. Like the fact that you're asking for my help. I said, okay, first off, there's 0 commercials. Second off, why don't we do this every week? 30 minutes on Monday. We'll jam. You'll get a homework assignment, and then we'll catch up the next week, see how that went, and we'll keep building on it every week. And you can message me, of course, in between, but things get busy. After 4 weeks, I actually had a need that she could help me with. And I'm like, cause she always said, like, let me know where I could help you. And I had the obvious things, like you could write something for my newsletter, you could share something, all of that. I had those like obvious asks in my back pocket, and I still may layer in like the writing for a newsletter thing, but like, one, the writing for our newsletter, only if it's mutually beneficial. We have 40,000 subscribers. So for a lot of people, writing for a newsletter is beneficial, but not everybody. So I understand. So like that's fine. So even when I have that ask, it's an ask that I think could provide value for them. But I had an ask that didn't necessarily provide value for them. And I'm like, you know what, you could finally help me, like set up Claude Code and like learn all of this. Mm-hmm. And she was so excited to help. She was so excited to put her whole team behind it. Not to mention, I know she's spoken positively about me to multiple people. And one meeting came inbound because of that. Okay. Totally different shift. I was not expecting any of that. I felt privileged to be in a position to help somebody, and privileged because, one, they're incredible and I didn't think they needed my help. They would have been just fine without it. But I think like together we could like take the top off even more, so to speak. And two, because it's always like warm and fuzzy to like know that you're good at something. You know what I mean? Like, and that's, there's kind of a reward just in that. So yeah. This is an example of like, my intention was to give. I ended up getting exactly what I needed, maybe more than I needed. And it was a very synergistic, we hate that word when it's cliche, but like, this is like truly like synergistic way. And both parties are feeling like really good. She feels really good to help. And she's like, next week I'm busy because this and this. And instead of me pushing her like to move fast, like that's fine. I'm gonna do it on my own. And then you could tell me what I did wrong. Like don't put too much pressure on the person you're asking for something, right? Like, I did this and this. I'm actually way better than I was when I asked you for help. In a week, I'm going to be even better. I probably won't need as much of your help, or you could help me get from maybe I go from 0 to 1 on my own or close to it, and it becomes easier, an easier place to help, and less of your bandwidth to help me. So make the asks easy and feel good. That's like one example, and I try to take that with everything I do.
Nice. Super solid. Like there's a lot there, and I think it feels like I'm talking to a lot of people about this, and that's what we do, and it boils down to like principles almost. It's like if you have the right principles, then it will drive your behavior, and then it will drive the opportunities, and then you get the right to to ask, and then you have those kind of like those like ways to ask and stuff. Like of course, like keep it light and so on, but like it feels like
Yeah,
the people the people who people who make the most of the network give the most to their network, and it doesn't I hate the word network because it just doesn't really kind of like capture
it
the
feels transactional, right?
super transactional network like so love it. I want to ask you about like what you're building now and
Yeah.
uh, this transition I guess from revenues to what you are
So
doing, and how does that play into that
so I'll talk high level. Like essentially, RevGenius is incredible and it's thriving, and companies, I realized, are coming to leverage our audience, and we have a great audience, like an ICP that's in line with a certain type of company, like a Swarm or a revenue technology type of company. And we're a phenomenal aspect to getting in front of your ICP. But I also realized that there was this gap where outside of maybe learning how to post good on LinkedIn, which some people do really well and more people don't, um, this idea of building audience and building your own RevGenius, and not as a community, because a community, a company doesn't necessarily need, if they're trying to build or generate demand or create or generate demand, they need an audience. Okay. And there's different nuances to building that I've learned. So the last year, maybe 2 years, I've dived deep into it. And today I realized there's actually like a way to engineer it
mm,
and to understand like who's interested in your message, who's interested in the problem that you're trying to solve, what to share with them at what time, and then to build out this owned media arm for companies to really be able to scale their impact, right? Because one, the general GTM world needs to understand, it needs to know what they don't know, or needs to understand what they don't know better, and or understand what they do know but is still a problem, an obvious problem, better, and learn about the solutions to that. And I really resonate with founders trying to create new markets. I think that go to market has become extremely noisy as a whole. Like you have outbound, you have LinkedIn, which posting content on LinkedIn, you have a lot of things that everybody's doing. How they're doing it, some are doing it better than others, but the biggest unlock I found while building RevGenius and past ventures I've done is to start with building something different verbalizing why it's different. So like having the product be fundamentally different. So like not every founder's doing this, but a lot of them are. Probably more are than than all the listeners even realize, right? And they're doing it for the right ways. So help them frame that, name what they're doing, and then get it to more people so that they could build a new, better future for folks that might be having a hard time or don't realize that there's an easier way to do certain things. So this idea of audience engineering is my really thoughtful, slightly technical at some points, viewpoint on like building the right audience for your product, and so that you don't have to rely on the LinkedIn algorithm, the X algorithm, etc. That could be an extension of the owned audience, and you could bring your people there, or meet your people there, I should say, that are already your people to engage and to build better relationships. But yeah, that's a big thing. And also how I'm viewing that bow tie funnel, and I don't have all the pieces in front of me, so like pardon if I leave some out, but on the one side is audience, then you have engaged audience, different levels of engagement there. Eventually they might buy your product. And then you have the typical growth thing like, okay, let's activate them, let's make them good users. But then you have on the other side, cool, now that they're like active users, let's build community of the people that are active. Let's help them help each other. And then after that, how could we turn some of them into evangelists? And then create loops around that. So growth loops on both sides, marketing led. Because I do think inbound is going to, and I don't think people disagree. It's just that they don't really know how to manufacture it, so to speak. Has to be a big part of the future, both creating and building demand. And traditional category creation, it scares people away. It's, there's some companies that do it at a certain point. Some people do it accidentally, not accidentally, do it kind of intentionally and like let the market, help it. Some people do it towards whatever, in Politic Forrester and Gartner, etc. But sure, that's part of it. But like, where that's missing is the distribution end of it. Like, great, I have a unique message and a unique product. I'm screaming on LinkedIn every day and I'm getting 1,000 impressions. There has to be a clearer way, like a more feasible way than to try to just post my tool stack every day on LinkedIn and help people with Claude, which is great. Claude loves that. Clay, a phenomenal company, loves that when you do that. But you're actually part of the Clay community. So they're doing a great job because you're now an evangelist. Claude's doing a great job because you're an evangelist to them. But what are you for you?
Yeah. Can you give
Like,
an
you're
example?
building your brand on behalf of somebody else. That's great. Like, I'm not saying you can't build a 7-figure, maybe 8-figure business like that. And people have, and they are. But I truly believe the unicorns of tomorrow are going to have to do more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to help them. And that's how I want to leverage what I've learned building RevGenius to help some brands directly.
Nice. Can you give an example of like a few companies that have built at that level, like audiences that are doing it well and that are like tapping into those like some of those loops, just to give some concrete examples.
You know what's funny? So Clay's done a phenomenal job on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
and they've traced. So people traditionally use rented media to go to owned, and
Mm-hmm.
there's dozens of great examples for that. There's fewer that have gone from owned to rented, and I'm trying to change that paradigm. So I have like smaller examples that are coming up, but like I don't have any massive ones because social is great. Like, you know, it's funny. They say like Claudebot, like what they've done in a weekend is like unheard of.
Mm-hmm. Talk about
It's
a
like,
different, talk about a
what's
different,
that?
talk about a different product, like, and you know, that they did something uniquely different, like that's, and then
When you
build
do
a whole,
something uniquely different like that, yeah,
yeah.
it's a massive unlock. ChatGPT, same thing. But even ChatGPT early, I was in the OpenAI Slack community before they went live. They had gone community first and
Mm-hmm.
just got like a community of early users. And then they iterated super fast on that product. I know some other companies that are doing similar now. That are, it tends to be PLG companies because you can get people into the product super easy early. That sometimes go community first
Mm-hmm.
or community early, and then they do that to get super fast feedback loops. They iterate on the product before like bringing it to the bigger market, and they make those groups. Some of them make them exclusive. OpenAI was exclusive as heck. I somehow got in because a company I was advising, like this college kid, he's like, I got in, and I'm like, get me in. And some are easier to get in, and but they hold it back. But like, you don't hear of those stories because um, this is when they're like really small, and
Mm-hmm.
then but they build early evangelists and stuff, and it's super interesting. Now, the way I'm approaching it is a whole new paradigm that I've seen work with like a dozen companies, and it's working incredibly well. So I'm going to keep that close to the vest for now. But it's super exciting because you need that alpha, right?
But it is. Nah, I love it. Well, maybe we can do a part two in like a few months or a few weeks or whatever. It's like the time to do a part two. Come back and share your, you know, like experience and outcomes of like building that. But
Yeah.
that sounds that sounds like super interesting. Like to zoom out and look at it at the audience level and audience engineering that you mentioned. And yeah, it's basically like maybe a next chat. Um,
And by the way, like there's a couple ways to skin a cat. Like the important thing is you need to, I'm a relationship person at heart, but I'm learning to become a systems person. You need to build systems that compound. Period. Um, I guess it's a growth person as well, and not just run random experiment. Like we all want to run experiments, and that was like the old way. But like, even with like your Claude Code setups, like you have a base foundation, like company profile, ICP, all of that, and then your business could be split up into like 5 systems. And like, what do you want to address first? How do you want to tinker with that? Same thing with audience building.
mhm.
And you learn a lot. So like it's truly a growth thing.
Want to hear more about that?
Yeah.
um, you
You'll hear all of it when the recorder's off.
Okay. um, awesome. Well, anything else you wanted to add, or any topic you think we missed on, or like we should like hit on that?
No, I mean, like I just want to say, like, the swarm is the best tool in this space, and you might have more conversions using the swarm than like the half dozen other things that could connect you with at a lesser level, or like with other people. But the big unlock for your conversion rate, if we're looking at this as math, the amount of people you say, can you introduce me to, is one, you want to make sure you're connected with people that you have relationships with, and tools like Swarm do that. But it's also what you say to them, and it's also how you interact with them. And I think trust is something that humans will have an advantage over AI for the foreseeable future, being a human as well. So if you treat somebody like a canned outreach template, even if it's somebody that you're connected with, they're going to treat you the same.
Nice. Thanks for bringing that back to the human. That's exactly how we see it. Like a lot of like technology and AI, but what it's wrapped around is essentially like human relationships. And bringing it down to that is awesome. Sweet.
That's it. Thank you
That's
for your
awesome.
time.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast. Appreciate it. And